So, good evening and welcome everyone who are joining us on Zoom and on Facebook Live locally and globally to Naveda's 80 is the New 50 webinar panel discussion number 36. We are 9 months into our panel discussion, and what an achievement. So, I am Veena Dansingani, founder, director, and alopecia hair loss specialist of Naveda Integral Wellness Center in Hong Kong, which is the first value based integral wellness center offering a transformative health experience to its clients in Hong Kong and also globally. Since the beginning of January 2021, Naveda has taken the initiative to educate people on happy, healthy, active, and purposeful living by running a campaign called 80 is the New 50. And since July, we have been taking yet another initiative to educate people about the Indian medicinal plants and all about the Indian ancient science of Ayurveda. Naveda has invited experts and scholars to share their knowledge and insights on this subject as we are committed and dedicated to bring this ancient Vedic wisdom to the global platform. We must have all noticed that there is an increasing number of people suffering from chronic health conditions, and there may be a variety of reasons for this, but one of the major causes is leading an imbalanced lifestyle, inappropriate sleeping and eating habits, and much more, which could actually cause an imbalance to the ecosystem of one's body and mind. So today, we would like to welcome our panel guests who will share the importance of Dinacharya, which is the daily regimen, the Ritucharya, which is the seasonal regimen, and the Sadvitra, which is the ethical regimen in Ayurveda. We have with us once again Dr. Pragan Tripathi, who's the director of Narmed Ayurvedam Panchkarma Center in Ujjain. So welcome Dr. Tripathi once again.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure again to be with Naveda. Thank you so much.
And then we have Dr. Indapurkar Kavita. Sorry if I pronounce it incorrectly.
Okay.
She's the professor and head Kirta. You'll have to say this. The head of Kirta Sharir Vinda
Vidya
College
Sharir,
of
Bharati Vidyapit College of Ayurved,
yes,
Pune.
University of Pune, right?
Yeah.
Wonderful. So welcome to our platform.
Namaste.
Namaskar ji.
And then we have Dr. Animesh Mohan, who is a
Namaste to everyone.
Panchakarma consultant and director of the Kaya Bandhu Multi-Speciality Ayurveda Hospital, Bareilly, UP, India.
Bareilly.
Namaste everyone. It's my pleasure to be here and join this wonderful session.
Thank you. And then we have Dr. Sanjay Nagakar, who is a world-renowned microbiologist, biotechnologist, and a scientist from he's got a PhD from the University of Hong Kong. His particular interest is in molecular medicine, which is a futuristic solution of modern healthcare. And also he has a very strong interest in preventive healthcare and much more.
Namaskar ji.
Thank you so much for being here. And we have, of course, we have Mr. Lal Darinani, who is our Naveda's director, and 80 is the new 50 campaign ambassador. And he is looking very lovely in red, bright, fresh, and energetic. A role model for many. Keeps learning with us even at his age, and that is why we call him 80 is the new 50. Ever ready to be learning with an open mind. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here and taking your time and to share your insights about this subject, which is becoming more and more popular. So today we have a very interesting subject. It is to understand the importance of Dinacharya, Ritucharya, and Sadvitra. So maybe we could start with Dr. Kavita. Dr. Kavita, welcome. Please share with the audience who are now with us globally a little bit about today's topic.
Um, I think all over the world, the audience is now looking for Naveda, and I would like to thank first Naveda team for inviting me here to share my views on this virtual platform. Now, when we are discussing regarding Ayurveda, we must see or look into its aim. So, what is the aim of Ayurveda? The aim of Ayurveda is Swasthasya Swasthirakshanam Aturasya Vikara Prashamanam. I know that most of you don't know Sanskrit. I will translate it for you. That the aim of Ayurveda is to prevent the diseases, to cure the diseases. So to prevention is better than cure is the most important thing from Ayurvedic point of view. So to fulfill this aim, we must know what swasthya is. What is the definition of health? Now, according to Ayurveda, the definition of health is different. According to Ayurveda, Vata, Pitta, Kapha, Tridosh, Dhatu and Mala. There are some principles of Ayurveda. And if we will follow Dinacharya, Rutucharya, all these things, we can balance Dosha, Dhatu and Mala. So we have to follow Dinacharya, Rutucharya, and that will be the discussion today. Why to follow Dinacharya, Rutucharya? How we can balance these three doshas, Vata, Pitta, Kapha, which when if they are vitiated, they can cause disease. So they are called as doshas. Over to you, please.
Wonderful. So, Dr.
Thank
Animesh, would you like to share your input on this today's topic?
Yeah, I'd like to give my introductory remarks. First of all, I'd like to say by organizing such type of conferences of panel discussion by Naveda, we can see Ayurveda is now growing global. And the best part of this is the scientific community. Like we can see Dr. Sanjay Nagarkar, sir, who is a biotechnologist, he is with us. Now the scientific community is becoming the part of such discussion, and this will definitely result into the in-depth understanding of Ayurveda concepts, the practical applicability, and making it up to the mark. I would like to say Ayurveda is actually not a medical science. I repeat, Ayurveda is not a medical science, but actually it is a science of life. It will not tell you just about the disease and the illness or the treatment of any particular disease, but it will tell you everything about the life of a human being, the life of an animal, and even the life exists in the environment also. So how the environment is affecting the human being, it tells about. It has been detailedly explained in Ayurveda. There is one Sanskrit quote which is known as Loka Purusha Samya. Lok is the environment, the Purusha is the human body, or any body of any of the animal. There is a samya, or there is a symbiosis between both of them. It is like the pupil and the environment, they are the two sides of the same coin. They are interconnected to each other. The disturbing element in the environment will definitely cause impact on the human body. And how this impact can be understood, this can be understood in the terms of the dosha. Actually, in Ayurveda, it is a physiological science. More than anatomical description, they have given the physiological description. They have very easily, very simply, they have divided everything into three categories: the Vata, Pitta, and the Kapha. We talk about the dosha of the body, and we talk about the mental status, then Sattva, Rajasika, and the Tamasa. They have told, like, if we do such activity, it will increase such type of dosha. If we eat such food, it will increase such type of dosha. So this is the formula. Like in mathematics, we have some formula. So they have given such formula for better understanding. And because a variety of factors are there which will influence the human body, all these three categories, the Vata, Pitta, and the Kapha dosha. And the major factor, one of the factors is the environment. And as we see the changes in the environment, whether it is from day to night or whether the changes are there from season to season, The changes can be seen in Ayurveda also. And one more thing, if we talk particularly about this Ritucharya, Dinacharya, and Sadavrita, actually this is a user manual of a complicated machine. I repeat, Ritucharya, Dinacharya, and Sadavrita, these are the user manual of a complicated machine. Like if we get a sophisticated machine in our industry, such as if we get a microwave, so we don't know how it is working, but a user manual will tell how to use it, what type of utensils you should use, at what temperature you should work. So similarly, Ritucharya and Dinacharya will give the clear guidelines. Like if you follow such type of guidelines, you'll not be getting any effect in the human body. And in this guideline, they tell you about the kind of the food what we should use, the time of administration of food, at what time we should consume food. Then the sleep cycle is also very important. At what time we should go for the relaxation, like Diva Swapna is indicated in a Grishma Ritu. Then how everything will work in keeping the body hormones to a check. So Ritu means the season, Chara means the follow-up of the order, what we should do, and Dina means the time of the day. In Ashtanga Hridaya, I would like to quote one slok, Aho Ratri Bhukta Nam Te Ante Madhya Digatsabat. Aho is a day, Ratri is a night time, Bhukta Nam is when we consume food. The Ante Madhya Digatsamat, they have divided into the three categories. So they have told how in these three different procedures, like if it is day or night or even by consuming food, at the end, Vat will be increased, in the middle, the Pitta will be increased, and in the starting, the Kapha will be increased. So these are some set of formulas, and they have given the detailed explanation also, but they are not restricted to anything. I'll repeat, like generally whatever is given, like Shada Ritu is given in Ayurveda, it is as per the context of Indian continent or the Asian continent. Like Uttarayan is given, Dakshinayan is given, the effect of the sun in the Uttarayan and Dakshinayan is given. So it is as per the Indian continent, but the fundamentals which is given, like what is the effect of sun on dosha, what is the effect of the moon on dosha. So these fundamentals will be applicable whether we are looking in Australia, whether we
Please unmute yourself. Yeah.
by using this formula, we can go into a very depth and we can create a revolutionary change for keeping the person healthy. We should look for Swasthasya Swasthya Lakshanam, and we should go for prevention of disease. Over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that lovely introduction. Dr. Tripathi, how are you?
Yeah, I'm very good. See,
Please,
this is
yes, please share.
Yeah, see, this is one of the most important part of Ayurveda. Definitely, Dincharya, Ritucharya, and Sadvrat. What all three topics you have taken today, these are actually the assets and gems of Ayurveda which we are carrying. See, there could be different medicines, different herbs, different minerals available all around the world in different places, but the lifestyle, the daily regime, the seasonal regime, or the do's and don'ts for human species, as I always talk even earlier in my previous sessions, that Ayurveda is a manual for human species. You must read this manual before actually start living. Yeah. So definitely what that particular manual part is, definitely the gist of that manual is Dinacharya, Ritucharya, and Sadvrit, what you have taken today. Sadvrit is something which is like the personal regime, what a human being is supposed to do and whom he should respect, whom he should not respect, or like uh, how he should go forward with Mother Nature, how a human being is supposed to live in alignment with the Mother Nature. That is what Sadvrit is all about. And every day, how he should take care of himself and the things around him, how a person can live a very healthy, happy, and pleasurous life every day, irrespective of seasonal variations. For that Ritucharya they have given, okay, you are not feeling very good with cold water because of winters. Okay, you can get the water hot now, and you can take bath with hot water. You can drink lukewarm water now. Okay, you are fed up of so much of summer. Okay, go out. When go out and take a beautiful bath in any natural, rainy condition. For that, they have mentioned more than 7 types of bathing procedures. Okay, for that you'll definitely love it. Love to listen this. The most divine most divine bathing according to Ayurveda, which says is something where sunlight is there, and along with a tremendous amount of sunlight, there is rain coming. Sunlight is also there and rain is also there. In that particular rain, if you are taking bath, it's called as Divya Snan, or the divine bathing. Okay, so this is very important for the people who are seeking for some, spirituality, or who are in the path of peace and happiness and pleasure. Definitely, there are so many different bathing procedures they have mentioned. They say that when the herd of cows are moving and lot of dust, the dust from the soil is coming up over your face, that bathing is something which finishes all your karmas. Like that, beautifully they have explained, to live in alignment with the nature daily, seasonally, like irrespective of any kind of changes around you. Ayurveda guides you. How can you be very happy and very healthy in different conditions? That is what Dincharya, Ritucharya, and Sadvrat is all about. Yeah, Veena ji.
Wonderful. So, Dr. Sanjay, I'm listening to, there seems to be a lot of formulas, what should be done, what should not be done. It seems like there's a user operation of how to use this complex, the machine of the human body. So, what does science say about all this?
No, you see, like science is life and life is science. That's what people need to understand. Science can be a complex mathematics and as simple as 2 plus 2 is equal to 4. Okay. So I always try to explain things in a more simpler format. 2 plus 2 is equal to 4. And if you try to argue like 2 plus 2 is equal to 4.1 or 4.5 or 3.9, that's not true. Then we are arguing, right? So mathematical point of view. Animesh, Dr. Animesh mentioned very interesting thing. First thing has to be noticed, and this is my emphasis everywhere, that Ayurveda is not a science of, it's not a medical science, it's a science of life, right? So that's everyone has to keep in mind that as everyone is saying, like it's a manual of, it's a manual, right? It's a guided manual. Means there is a discipline. Let's not talk about do's and don'ts. Discipline means do's and don'ts itself, right? Second very important thing is Ayurveda and all this ancient wisdom is now popularizing out of India globally. So we have to understand the demography around the world and implementation of this Indian wisdom in particular demographic situation, right? So sometime, because it's a Dincharya, Ritucharya, and Sadvidya, what is, even in India, what you are practicing in Rajasthan may not be very accurate in Kerala. Or what you are doing in Kerala cannot be very accurately implemented in West Bengal. Okay, so that is one, is the demographic, is very, very important. Second is we have given a too much importance or very high importance to astrology. And Hindi, we say Jwar Bhata, like high tide, low tide. This is one of the best example I explain to the people. And that's where the science is coming. So you explain science. So I'm putting how science is playing role. There's some miscalculation went into the system. And when the miscalculation went into the system and it stay there for so many years, it became a pattern and it became a trend. And then it's very difficult to correct. Okay. So if Ayurveda is going around the world, the first responsibility is it has to go in the right way. People have to understand in the right way. and practice in the right way.
Yeah.
If they don't understand practice in the right way, then the word only Ayurveda will remain and the title will remain Dincharya, but you're not doing in the right way. So example I give in this way, that the magnetic field on earth around the globe is not same. So in India, whenever we call it muhurat, auspicious time, seasons, and all those kind of thing, that is relevant to the Indian demography. And that also vary within the Indian demography. As I mentioned, like east to west, and like most of the people don't know, like there's a 10-minute time difference between the sunset, like the timing between like the east coast of India to the west coast of India. Now we are sitting in Hong Kong, we have a 2.5 hour time difference from India right now on an average, right? The gravitational pull, the tidal height, okay, that's what we call the tidal height, the intertidal. Okay, at a high tide, the gravitational pull is different in different country and also different within the same country. Okay, so like say for example, high tide. Okay, this is very important to understand, and why I'm saying at what context, I will just come into that, because this is very relevant to this particular topic. Otherwise, like the practice will go wrong. So in Hong Kong, the tide is 2.5 meter, means the maximum height, the gravitational pull is 2.5 meter. In some places in the world, the tide water go up to 4 meter. Some part of the world, the water go up to 7 meter, right? So it means like the gravitational pulls are different. Now, Ayurveda context and everything, the content is designed in India, written in India. But the experience on Indian demography, that one has to understand. That's where the science is coming. Now, when people use Ayurvedic principle, they have to consider which demography they are living, and they need to calibrate that system as per their demographic situation. Otherwise, it's same like a scale, right? If you are weighing your like weight, and if you don't put the scale at 0, then you are measuring a wrong weight. So the calibration is very important. And this is one of the most important observation, which I have seen, that the Ayurveda is going as a one single unit around the world, around the globe, as a fixed template. And that's where the practice is going wrong. The people cannot get the whole benefit of it, right? I hope you understand like my point, and audience can understand my point, and Dr. Nimesh and Dr. Kavita. This is the thing, like as a science, we have studied that Muhurat, auspicious time, cannot be based on Indian calendar. It's very wrong. All around the world, the pundits like they take out the auspicious time. So when we talk about the innovation, unless you know the gravitational pull of that particular country, the magnetic force, right? Because like all the astrological forces are working together in one particular demographic location. That is why you wear the different stones. Like we have the astrology and all this, like the energy pulling and everything, right? So I'm giving a little bit a broader perspective so that the people can understand, like when you do Dincharya, Ritucharya, Sadvidya, you go anywhere in the world, you have to adopt your location. So my main take is, please consider your location where you are. And if you're not in India, and this is the first thing, the location. So in location, 3 things are very important. The whole globe is divided into 3 parts. One is a tropical belt, subtropical, and temperate, right? So again, what practice you do in the tropical, where we have all these ritus, like seasons, whereas the temperate mostly is a winter. So you cannot adopt the same thing in, say, Sri Lanka or Australia and use the same template in Canada. Will not work. that even the practitioners and like those who are giving the training, they should understand, and like the people, those who are using, they should understand. This is very, very important point. So first, understand the globe. Second thing, what Animesh mentioned very well, and I would say, like, this whole topic everyone is saying, in our science, okay, we are all on the same page, but in our science, it's just very simple. We are talking about the ecosystem, the ecology today. Okay, there's nothing. There's an ecology, that how the whole Srishti or Prakriti is sustained, right? There is a balancing it between each other, right? So you can balance between each other by certain kind of ecosystem, right? So there is some kind of subconscious or energetic or cosmic or quantum, don't know what, you can give it any name, right? People are give any name. So that's my perspective, and whenever the comments will come, I will try to put on that particular line, and I hope all the doctors are agree with me here. My re-emphasis point is demography.
Wonderful.
Can I give some point?
Yes,
Yes.
please.
Very wonderfully, Dr. Sanjay sir has explained in his context, because he is a biotechnologist. He'll talk about in the terms of the modern science. What I'd like to include is whatever things you have, sir, you have said right now. Everything is given in detail in Ayurveda. One by one, I'll come. The first thing is you told about the individualized medicine. In Ayurveda, it is told Purusham Purusham Vichy. If we are talking about even the diet plan, it will vary from patient to patient. If we talk about the medicine, even the doses, it will vary from patient to patient. And the second thing you told about the demography. And the effect in the demography, the result of demography is there in the magnetic field, then the gravitational pull. So if we talk about the demography, the first thing in Ayurveda, it is told in the terms of desha, like in which desha we are living, the saath mein, the food what we consume, uh, we should go for the food which is available in that particular desha. We should consume the medicine that is available in that particular desha. And the other effect of the desha is the magnetic field and the gravitational pull. If I'd like to tell you, the basic concept of Ayurveda is the Prakriti concept. And in Prakriti concept, what they have told is the Prakriti is decided at the time of Shukra Shonita Sanyoga, like when the zygote formation is taking place. So the time of zygote formation is very important. The whole astrology is working based upon the time of
Yes.
birth, the date of birth, because at that particular time, the magnetic field, and the other thing is they, in astrology they'll definitely ask you about the birthplace. So the second thing is the gravitational pull and the magnetic field at that particular area when you were born will decide the basic makeup of your body. Then one more thing you told about the calibration. So one more thing which I'd like to include is the concept of microbiome. I have one of the research article. This is a literary study. Uh, the present science, the modern science is moving towards the concept of microbiome. Like one of my guru, Professor Ram Singh, he always used to say, our human body is made up of 10 to the 14 trillion human cells and 10 to the 17 trillion microbes. They are living in symbiosis with the human body, and they are deciding whether we'll be healthy or any illness will take place. This is one of the articles which I'd like to quote is, this is from Journal of Ethnic Food, adopting seasonal regimen, that is Ritucharya, to modulate the seasonal variation in gut microbiome. So whatever it has been given, it is a type of a formula, and how it is affecting is it is affecting the gut microbiome, how which particular type of microbe should grow. I'll give one more example. I have some props over here. So if you can see, these are the three glasses. We can consider it as Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. These are already filled up to a level. This is our Prakriti. When we were born, we were having some amount of Vata, some amount of Pitta, and some amount of Kapha. Now, as this Pitta glass is this much empty, if we keep on pouring more Pitta over here, one time it will start, the water will start coming out and leaking. So that particular time will decide you will be ill or not. So the level of pitta or the level of vata will decide whether you will be getting the diseases of vata more or pitta more. This level is already decided at the time of birth. Now, one more thing. According to Ritu, what is happening in a Ritu? Like if we tell in Vasant Ritu, there is a Kapha Prakopa. Kapha Prakopa means the environment is pouring kapha in your body. So very easily it will get full, and the water will again start coming out. Then again the process of disease will take place. So what Ayurveda is telling you is, so this is your natural context, that is Prakriti. The individualized medicine, what you told, like it will be different for every individual, whether he is in US, in Hong Kong, or in Australia. The other thing is the effect of the body, the effect of the environment, like in which particular environment. It is not sure, like the Shad Ritu is there. The, in a particular Hemant Ritu, if we consider, the properties of Hemant Ritu has been detailedly described in the Samhita. See, we should go for the property. We should look in the context of China, like these properties are, whenever they are present, it is Hemant Ritu for China. So in that particular Ritu, that particular dosha will increase. So we should decide the Dinacharya and Ritucharya in that way. And if we talk about the gut microbiome, actually I am a doctor of Panchakarma, a Panchakarma specialist. I am treating a variety of diseases, and how I am treating it by providing therapeutic emissions, the Homan Karma, by inducing the therapeutic purgation, the Virechan Karma, by giving enema, that is the Basti. So in each and every this particular treatment, I am working on the gut. I'm just removing something, and the effects can be seen in the whole body. Like in the patient of psoriasis, it is a systemic illness. Just by inducing vomiting, we can treat such disease. So how it is working? Because in the Panchakarma, we are removing the gut microbiome, we are changing the whole gut microbiome, and in the Sansarjana Krama, which is done post Panchakarma, we are providing such type of microbes which are helpful for the body, and they will cure the disease. So this is one of the concepts. So I think the modern science right now, they are moving into the concept of magnetic field, the gravitational pull. They are moving into the concept of astrology. They are moving into the concept of gut microbiome. And the science is moving in this particular direction, and Ayurveda is already living over there. Over to you, sir.
Just in order to connect the bridge, basically, like why I said that, I'm complementing Ayurveda, like because we are into the hybrid science. So when I started, I said like biotechnology is not a science, it's a tool. So whether it is Ayurveda or whether it is a like modern science, molecular genetics or whatever like that, everywhere you need to use a biotechnology because it is a tool. Because now you have a tool to verify and justify what you are doing, right? So for example, in a very simple format, we can say like, okay, previously say ashwagandha is good, right? Why it is good? Because there's a lot of literature. It's an observation based description, right? Because in the past, we didn't have any instrument like thousands of years back, right? So it's mostly like the observational science. So ecology is basically observational science. So when you have a large number of observation, thousands of years of back, you establish the facts. Then what happened in the modern science, like if you say in the currently many agriculture university in India, we have a department of Indian medicinal plants, right? So they are doing a lot of research, like what kind of like plants, and there's a whole list of the therapeutic plants and all those kind of things. So we actually complementing what Ayurveda is doing by saying, because usually what happened, like imagine that you are from Ayurveda, so you know very well, but a common man, the Ayurveda is not advertised or market or taught in such a way that the understanding of the normal or community level is very high. So what is happening, like the Ayurveda became a fashion around the world, right? So how you counter that fashion, because it is not a fashion. It is like something very beautiful, and it can change and it can give you life. So we have to come in between with some kind of verification. So what do we do? Like we verify by using the modern science tool what you guys are doing. So in that way, what happened, like the audience or the people, those who are using, they feel more comfortable. It's like that. Okay, so we are on the same page. Let's put in this
Yeah,
way.
we
Yeah,
are on the
yeah,
same
yeah,
page.
yeah,
Can
we
I
are on
come
the
in?
same page. Yes, please.
I totally agree with you, Dr. Nagarkar sir. But I don't agree that it's not the science. Ayurveda is a science. Now, see, the definition of science is it is based on some principles, and with the scientific methods, it will come to inference. So, you just we have discussed that 2 plus 2 is equal to 4, isn't it? But mathematics also, there is a zero. What zero is? Nothing. Who invented zero?
Yeah, yeah. Please go ahead.
Yeah,
Yeah.
zero is nothing, but we have to consider zero,
Yes. Yeah.
Aryabhat, the Indian scientist. So
Yeah.
we have to consider something to solve so many problems. So Ayurveda has considered some principles on which it is based. Now, basically, we know that we can't see through and through. Should we use instruments? Should we use modern science to prove Ayurveda? Yes, we should. I am with Dr. Nagarkar sir. Because it's a science. The instruments are the development of physics. The methods which are there with these are with the help of modern chemistry, biochemistry. We should take the help of these things to prove Ayurvedic concepts. But the basic thing is we should not translate the terminology. Translation is okay, but we should firm for the principles or the terminology of Ayurveda, and whatever instruments we can use, we should use, because if we can't see through and through, we should use X-rays for that. We have to use microscopes to see microscopically. There are so many methods with the help of which we can prove the functions of so many things in which are going in our body. So many types of researches are there with the help of so many instruments we are doing in our MD and PhD level also. Not only on plants, but whatever the functions are there of dosha, dhatu, mala, we are trying to prove with the help of instruments, with the help of methods. Let's see what will be there. Just now, I want to stress on one point also. Dr. Nagarkar said that there is time difference. Okay, yes, there is time difference. There is difference in seasons. We have to consider all these things, and these things are considered in Ayurvedic texts. They have given the symptoms of those seasons, and then we have to use whatever dinacharya, rutucharya according to that season. Of course, yes, we have to consider the season. Of course, yes, we have to consider the prakriti, that means constitution of that individual, and we have to give the guidance. So that's all. We will discuss further more also. But
I'd like,
okay, proceed.
yeah,
Go
I'd
ahead.
like to add some more things. What I perceive is like Dr. Sanjay sir is in our course. He is supporting Ayurveda. He thinks
Yeah,
like Ayurveda is a scientific thing.
yes,
And
of course.
definitely you are explaining that also. But what I perceive is definitely, sir, Ayurveda is a experimental science. It's not just observational science. Like they have not done only the observation. They have experimented on lakhs of population. Then they have come to a conclusion. What has been given in the form of a sutra, and it was being experienced for thousands of years. Then a particular sutra was formed. Then the other thing is the problem lies when we are talking about the scientific explanation of Ayurveda. The problem lies in our research methodology. Actually, the tools which we are using right now, or the way the tools we are using right now, is doesn't fit for Ayurveda. Like we are working in the visible spectrum because allopathy is working in the conventional medicine is working in the visible spectrum, and Ayurveda is more than that. It is having the infrared spectrum and the UV spectrum also. So we need to go for the black box study. We need to go for the retrospective study, and we should go. We should reduce the habit of ignoring. This is the main problem with the scientific community, and particularly in Ayurveda members talking about the MD thesis and the MD research work. What we are doing is we are comparing with the allopathic system of medicine, what the protocols they have been given, like role of this particular drug in this disease. Even that disease, we are diagnosing based upon the parameters of the allopathic system. So the part which can be explained through that particular protocol, we will explain, and the other part we'll ignore. Like in the practice, maximum Vaidya have ignored the principles of Prakriti. Maximum Vaidya are not considering the principles of astrology. Maximum Vaidya are not considering the principles of Desha, the Satmya. So what we are doing right now is this is turmeric. How we are marketing Ayurveda? This is turmeric, and it is having the anti-allergic effect, and it is having the anti-inflammatory effect. So it can be used everywhere. But we are not considering about the vira of the turmeric. We are not considering about the good of the turmeric. So here lies the problem. What I think the scientific community, Dr. Sanjay sir, can explain it better.
Is see, like today's discussion, basically Dincharya, Ritucharya, and Sadvidya, is we are actually, if you see, uh, like to give, like, say, Hong Kong example. Hong Kong is the best place in the world where you can come and see how TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, they have popularized as a first choice of a healthcare system. So the question, what I say honestly, which Ayush is also working, that how people can adopt, like let's say Indian, adopt Ayurveda as a first choice of a healthcare. Okay. So in order to study that, sometime it is very important that we need to learn what is happening in the modern world. And because we are sitting in Hong Kong, we have seen that we have like, wow, this TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, these guys have done wonderful job. They made it TCM as a first choice. So if you go into China, allopathy came later. First is like their TCM. How they have done it? By not only winning the trust of the people, but also the global legal system. And one of the things is to qualify the insurance guideline. Okay. And that is one of the things Ayurveda is struggling right now. The Ayurveda is not covered on the insurance globally. Like Australia is doing it. And one of the Ayush, this objective is to bring the Ayurveda in the insurance. And that's what TCM has done very well. Why? Because the moment you have like this certain verification, what we call the scientific validated data. So we are not talking about the traditional Chinese medicine or Unani or Ayurveda or anything. Let's talk about like the very simple concept, because like there is a science, there's a treatment, and there is a regulatory, right? So we have to pull all together in order to make it like more popular. Unless a regulatory system of the world do not recognize certain system, then it will be always very popular only within India. So what we need to do, where we, the global regulatory bodies, should recognize this system. So Australia is one of the very good example for Ayurveda. Like in Australia, Ayurveda is very well recognized, and more and more Australians are like really practicing Ayurveda, and they are visiting India and doing very well. So I think like that we should take as like a best model for globalization of Ayurveda, like how Ayurveda has done very well in Australia. Okay, so we have to collect the clue. So now the main thing come, like what are the component in Dincharya, Ritucharya, and Sadvedya that you as a doctor, you explain to your patient, or you explain as a preventive healthcare system, which work in India, but the people, those who don't have much knowledge by and large around the world, they should also practice at home, because Dr. Tripathi is here, and all the time we discuss with him, try to ask him that, okay, say something where a layman can understand. And even there is no doctor, like there's a many countries we don't have a qualified Ayurvedic practitioners, right, the doctors. So in such a scenario, how a layman can get the benefit of Ayurveda? So I think like one by one, like if you can explain this Dincharya, like the today's topic, that will help our audience a lot, and then we can discuss on that. Like Dr. Tripathi can put
Dr.
like.
Tripathi, would you like to start with tell us about something about Dincharya and some what does that exactly mean to the layman?
Yeah, definitely. See, Dincharya is something which is mandatory for everyone. Let it be any place or country, let it be any time going on, and let it be any condition. But the Dincharya is something which is supposed to be almost the same for everyone. Like everybody should get up, try to get up as the sun rises, and people should try to go to sleep as the sun sets. That is how it goes. That is how it proceeds. Moreover, uh, like as people are following nowadays, like they should get up. Ayurveda says Prabhate Usha Panam. They should get up early morning, Brahma Muhurt, just before some time before sunrise, like 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. in Indian time, they say. And after that, drinking some lukewarm water, that to sip by sip in sitting position, one breath, one sip. Then they should go for defecation. Then they should go for brushing their teeth. After that, they have advised systematically. They have advised like the full body massage or abhyangam, swed, nasya, dhumpan, karnapuran. Like that, they have systematically advised a complete daily routine or complete daily routine regime which everybody is supposed to follow. They are saying as the time is moving towards pitta, the pitta is dominant. Like early morning, the pitta starts 11 o'clock, it is going up 12 o'clock, it is maximum. And after 12 o'clock, it is coming down, and 12 to 2 p.m., around 2 p.m., it is vanished. So everybody must take the lunch before 2 p.m. So what they generally advise is 12 to 1 is the ideal time for lunch. Yeah. And as we are going down, uh, if you are talking about the time of sleep, generally people sleep in afternoons, and Ayurveda strictly says in just leaving the extreme summers, nobody should sleep in the day. Yeah, 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. is the time ideally people go for sleep. But Ayurveda says it is a Vata Kala, where Vata is dominant, where air is dominant in your body. So that is the activity time, exactly like 2 a.m. to 6 a.m., which Ayurveda says it's a Vata Kala. So in the time at the time where Vata is dominant, one should get up so that they don't have to put any extra efforts for defecation. You need not, go take any kind of smoking or tobacco or something like that, which generally people are doing, taking for going for easy defecation. So you don't need to do all those things if you are getting up in Vata Kala, where Vata is dominant. Yeah, the same way in the afternoon, where 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. is a Vata Kala, where Vata is dominant. One must not sleep, otherwise there will be Vata dominance. Yeah, so as a terminology goes, they call it Diva Swapna, has to be completely prevented. Yeah, and the same way, like nowadays, people working in so many MNCs, they are working late night or sometimes overnight. So Ayurveda strictly says that after 10 p.m. at night, it is a time of pitta. It is a time of fire dominance. If you are getting up more and more, proceeding away from 10 o'clock, like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, or 12 a.m., like that, if you are getting up, you're not going for sleep, definitely pitta will be aggravated, and there will be, uncontrolled thoughts will be there, palpitation will be there, hyperacidity will be there, various skin disorders, anorectal disorders will be there, bleeding disorders will be there. So what Ayurveda is telling about the dinacharya, you should not sleep in the day, you can sleep at night, you should not wake up in the at night, eat timely, because our the digestive fire is directly proportionate to the sun. Definitely sun is the source of fire in the earth, in the universe, in our universe, definitely. So the digestive fire is directly proportional to the sun. If you are trying to eat something after sunset, that too heavy, what nowadays people are generally following, they'll be working and eating very light food throughout the day, and they just try to eat heavy food with lots of wine and all those things, that to late night, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, definitely it is going to produce all those gastric ulcers, peptic ulcers, pies, fissure, fistula, and hyperacidity, hypertension, hair fall, hair whitening, heaviness in the eyes, sinusitis, all those things are going to happen, constipation, gastritis, because when there is no sun, definitely digestive fire will be diminished, and we are not the kind of animals who are going for eating at night, right? Like the tigers and all those things, definitely we are not that category. We are above the, pyramid of the universe, we are at the top of it, and we are the most civilized people. That's why they have written Ayurveda for us. Yeah. So let it be. Ayurveda says that there are 6 seasons. You go all over the world, you cannot find more than 6 seasons. These are the basic 6 seasons: autumn, spring, summer, winter, rain. That's it. There could be early autumn, late autumn, early spring, late spring, more rain, less rain, but there are 6 seasons: Shishir, Vasant, Grishma, Varsha, Sharad, Hemant. Definitely there cannot be more than 6 seasons. There could be classifications of that. So they have explained the diet and lifestyle of all the 6 seasons. Let you be in any part of the world, you find out which season is going on, which is the seasonal variation happening around you. Follow that particular regime. They have given a freedom to choose a particular diet and regime according to season. But the dinacharya, the lifestyle, like getting up early, going for sleep early, eating on time, doing some yoga, pranayam, going for purification every year, panchakarma, as Dr. Animesh also told, he is a panchakarma expert. Definitely once in a year, everybody should go for a detoxification and purification of the body to maintain and to rejuvenate yourself. So that is how it should be taken positively, and that is how it is explained for the whole world, for the whole of the earth. Yeah, Veeraji.
Yes, wonderful. So it seems like there are a set of rules to follow. If we follow these kind of rules, everyone's life will be more balanced and they will be saved from diseases. Am I right, Dr. Animesh? Want to
Yeah,
add something?
yeah. I'd like to add something like what Dr. Sanjay sir told, what Ayurveda can give to the world. The main thing is Ayurveda can give it Samhita. I'm having the Ashtanga Hridaya Samhita, but the problem lies is how we interpreted the classics. What thing is based upon the demography, what thing is based upon the geographical area and the person to person prakriti. So I'll give, if you give me 5 minutes, I'll give some examples. Like in the Dinacharya Adhyaya of Ashtanga Hridaya Sutra Sthan, it starts with Brahma Muhurat Uttishte Swasto Rakshartham Ayusha. I'll translate it. We, like Shah has also told, we should wake up in the Brahma Muhurat. The Brahma Muhurat is different for every country. The Brahma Muhurat is the time of 1.5 hours before the sunrise. It will depend upon the season, it will vary upon the season, but this is the formula. We should awake ourselves in the Brahma Muhurata, that will help in the Raksha of the Ayu, means to give the long life. Then the second thing, what Ashtanga told is Sharir Chintama Nivritya Krita Socham Vidishtata. Now they are telling like we should assess the condition of the body, then we should go for the removal of the ficus, the feces, like the Soch term we should go. This is the concept. But now comes the different thing. The next line is Arka, Neogrodha, Khadira, Karanja. These are the name of the plant which is given. So this will vary depending upon the country where we are living. So they have given according to the Ayurveda concept, but the main principle will remain the same. We should wake up at in the Brahma Muhurta. Then we should go for go for brushing our teeth, passing our stools. But again, one more concept is given in the third line. They are told about kashaya katu tiktikam, the rus of the toothpaste what we are using. It should not be madhura. Now, this is the
Which is not
concept. Whether we are
Lavana.
living in the Hong Kong, we are,
Lavana.
if we are living
But
in Australia, Sydney, or we are living in US. This is the concept. You might not be using the Arka, you might not be using the new growth for doing the Danta Dhavana, but what you should be doing is you should use the drugs which are of Kashaya, Katu, and Piktiras. Now, further tell you about Soviranjanam Nityam. We should apply Soviranjan. It is a type of a kajal. It is good for eyes. Why? They have also told Chakshum Tejomayam Tasyam Visheshada Shleshmato Bhayam. The Chakshu, the eyes, they are basically the site of the Tej, the Pitta, and they have the bhaya. They are fearful from the kapha. So if anyone is from China or anyone is from US, everyone will be having the Tej Mahabhuta Pradhanta in the eyes, and for everyone the kapha, the Shleshma will be there. So he or she should use Soviranjan daily. Then they are told about the Navana, Gandusha, Dhumapana, and Tambula. Navana is a type of a nasya. We are covering the nasal root. The Gandusha and Kavala. Gandusha is like the oil pulling therapy. Now here comes the concept of microbiome. In the morning, we are cleaning everything. Then we are providing a particular environment so that a particular type of microbes can grow very easily in the mouth, in the oral cavity, in the nasal cavity, so that it will prevent from disease. So they have covered the oral part. Then next they have told about the Abhyanga. Abhyangam Acharete Nityam Jala Shrama Vataha. We should go for oil massage of whole body. It will vary from season to season, but everyone should follow in a daily routine. Now they have also given relaxation. They are not very strict about their principles. They have told if you cannot go for oil massage of whole body, then at least you should cover Shira Shravana Padeshu Tama Visheshena Shiliyet. At least the head, then Shravana, the ears, and the foot. You should do massage at least for these particular three regions. Then afterwards, you should go for Vyayama. Even in the Vyayama also, they are talking in very depth. Ardha Shaktya Nishe Vastu Balavi Snigdha Bojabi. It should be done till Ardha Shakti. These are the principles. This will work everywhere. Around the globe, these are the principles. So this is the duty of Ayurveda person to interpret the Ayurveda Samhitas or the Ayurveda classics and give a proper result. Few things I would like to add, like the Sanjay sir, he was very much concerned that how we project Ayurveda at a global platform. What I think, first we should use the modern medicine or the modern medical science or the modern scientific tools like biotechnology or physics. We should work in forming a Ayurvedic Kundali for each and every individual. The Ayurvedic Kundali, like what is the Prakriti? It can be decided based upon the characters which are given in the Samhita, and it can be decided based upon the time of the birth using the astrology also. Then that particular Kundali everyone should know, and using a software like the formula already it has been given. If somebody is of Vata Prakriti, then he should not indulge in activities which can lead to increase in Vata. He should not consume food which can increase Vata. So we can give a set pattern of life. So you are a Vata Prakriti individual, you should follow this particular pattern. So it will prevent diseases. And what further we can give is we can also give him the expected disease, which he might be suffering in the future days. So I think the modern medical science cannot reach up to that level. And this is by using the science, the scientific tools in a proper way, not just proving the result of Ayush Kara in COVID. We should work on the result of Ayush Kara in this particular individual. Then it will be a better explanation. Over to you.
Wonderful. So, yes, that's very interesting. And Dinacharya. So, I mean, yes, there seems to be a set of do's and don'ts that we need to follow. But again, the practicality of it in the modern age, that is where, like you say, daily massages, daily this, daily that. I don't think the daily, modern man has that time to follow each and every component of that routine. So, would there be anything specifically? Can we alter something for the modern man with this, with so much that goes on with him?
Yes, definitely. And Ayurveda, they know like every type of patient will be there. Someone will be following the all the instructions given by the doctor. Someone might not be following. So they're told if you will continuously consume some dosha increasing diet or vihar, the regimen, then systematically it will lead to a disease. Systematically it means a Kriya Kala. Shada Kriya Kala has been explained in Ayurveda. It will start from Sanchaya, the collection, then Prakop, Sanchaya cha Prakopam cha Prasaram Sthana Sanchayam. First of all, there will be the collection, then Prakop means there will be the accumulation, there it will increase, then Prasa it will start moving, then Sthana Sanchayam will be there, means the dosha will start bonding with the tissue. The dosha dhatu samulchana will be there. So at every level, the chikitsa, the treatment has been given. So if you are not following these principles, don't worry. If you are not doing Abhyanga, then you will have increase in the vata. If you are following the night duty, then definitely the vata in your body will increase. Then you can come to a Panchakarma Vedya. For Swastha Panchakarma, we have the Basti therapy. We'll give you a Basti therapy for 10 days to 15 days. You'll be fine. If the kapha is increasing in your body, we have the Vamana therapy, you'll be fine. So if it is in a Sanchaya Avastha, then we should go for Nidana Parivarjana. If it is in Prakop Avastha, then we should go for Panchakarma. And if it is in Sthana Sanchaya Avastha, then we need some medicines also. So for every individual, it would be different. But the thing is, for each and every condition, there is a solution in Ayurveda.
Wonderful. So, Dr. Kavita, I want to learn from you about Ritucharya. So, maybe you would share with the audience what is Ritucharya and what are certain things one should follow. Unmute yourself.
Yes, I will share with you about some Ritucharya, but I want to add something here that we will go to ethical regimen first, I think so. Because what just Dr. Tripathi and Dr. Mohan has explained, they explained very well the importance of each and every each and every point from Dinacharya. They have explained very well. I want to add one thing that Brahme Muhurte Uttishtet, there is one shlok and one reference that we should get up early in the morning. There is another reason for that. There is Sattva Guna Utkarsha. So what is there outside in the universe is there inside. So Sattva, Raja and Tama, we were talking about Prakriti, and according to Prakriti, we are discussing at Ayurveda level. I want to add one thing. Each and every person has psychological constitution and physical constitution. So psychologically, Sattva Rajatama. Vata, Pitta, Kapha constitution is there, but each and every person shows Sattva, Raja and Tama, the entities. So maybe both or all entities are there, but predominance of one. And as they have given Dinacharya, Rutucharya, ethical regimens are also given. And when we follow these things, they are beneficial for self, because just we have heard that self-healing is also essential. When we know our Prakriti, we should plot our Prakriti. We must know each and every person on this earth, not only Indian, but outside India. He must know his Prakriti. He must know his percentage of Vata, Pitta, Kapha as well as Sattva, Rajatama. So I am stressing on this point, that first we will discuss about this point and then we will go further. That each and every person should know what percentage of Sattva, what percentage of Raja and what percentage of Tama he has. Now let's discuss what Dr. Nagarkar said, that yes, we must follow the guidelines and we must show what these are. But I want to stress here one thing, that when we are doing any type of research, two type of parameters are there. Quantitative parameter and qualitative parameter. And when there are subjective tests, all these are subjective things, not objective things. Each and every subjective thing we want to translate, we want to transfer in objective things, means criteria. If we want to count each and everything, is it possible to count each and everything? Okay, no problem. Question is also one of the tool. Dr. Nagarkar will agree with me. For any research method, questionnaire is also a type of tool. And with that, with the help of that, we can count how much Sattva, how much Raja, how much Tama is there in everyone's personality. Now, we have to increase, or we should increase Sattva Guna by following the ethical regimens. Because in ethical regimens, they told that be hospitable, be cool, be calm, don't be unnecessarily angry, be kind, be honest. See, it's not so easy, but we have to follow all these things. Speak kindly, have patience, have cleanly habits. All these are ethical regimes. Now, according to Ayurveda, these things will increase Sattva Guna. Now, according to modern science, also we know most of the diseases are psychosomatic. Psych and soma, mind and body, they go hand in hand. Now, we are considering Sattva, Raja, Tama. These are related to psych. And Vata, Pitta, Kapha, they are related to body. But when Raja and Tama, they are increased, they will lead to the diseases of Vata, Pitta, Kapha. So it's very complicated thing. Our body and mind, it's very complicated thing. And we should increase our Sattva. Now researches are done. And it is proved that if Raja and Tama doshas are more, then it will create, or the person will be vulnerable to a stress. And we know the effect of stress. So we must follow all these regimens, ethical regimens, because see, just we have discussed, you asked one thing, that it is impossible nowadays. It's fast-paced life and how to follow all these rules, isn't it? I will just give you an example that when you're going on a road, you have to cross the road, then there will be red light, means you have green light to cross. Or on footpath, on a specific thing you have to go. That is a rule. If you are in a hurry and you will break that rule, it is possible that you will get an accident. So rule is a rule. You have to follow the rule. That is a rule. If you will not follow the rule, maybe you have to face some problems. And then Ayurvedic doctors, we are here to cure you. So, so this is regarding Sattva Rajatama. Let's discuss afterwards also about Sattva Rajatama.
Yes, yes, yes.
Over
We
to you.
have very limited time at the moment. So
Yeah.
very quickly, we want to understand, Dr. Tripathi, are you ready to share just simply, because we really have short of time, what is Rutacharya in a simple for layman's language?
See, talking about Ritucharya, it is something which a person is supposed to follow to live a life at ease. Yeah. If you are doing some hatha yoga or something like very tough practice you want to do, definitely Ayurveda says, okay, you go to river Ganges and take bath throughout the year. But if you want to live a very healthy life, you are not going for any hatha yoga or something, you are not following any particular strict path, definitely Ayurveda says live at ease. If it is winters, definitely take bath with hot water. If it is summers, definitely you can take bath with a water of body temperature. Yeah, Ayurveda generally do not advocate to promote any kind of exposure to the cold. Yeah, they ask you to live touch anything which is at least lukewarm or of body temperature, but not of very cool temperature. Yeah, that is why they don't talk about ice cream. They don't talk about cold water pad, that thing which they are doing nowadays in injuries. They are saying with ice bag you can do something. You can touch the ice bag. No, Ayurveda don't advocate all those things. Ayurveda talks about if you are going for any kind of cold exposure, definitely your vata is going to increase. Your vata is going to take the pratilom gati, and that vitiated vata is going to disturb all the other doshas. Yeah, as we talked earlier, pitta pango, kapha pango, pangavo, maladhatva, vayuna, yatra, niyante, tatra, gachanti, like that, which means that if vata is vitiated, it is going to disturb all the pitta, kapha, all the three malas, panch mahabhutas, sapta dhatus, everything. So, Ritucharya is something where Ayurveda is advocating and asking you to live at ease with pleasure. What is going to give a man very happiness in winters? Definitely little hot things. Yeah, that is what Ayurveda says. You eat hot, you drink hot water, you take bath with hot water, you cover your body with hot clothes. And if you are not comfortable, definitely you put such flowers, such color flowers which are very brightening, so that you can feel that little heat kind of thing with all those dark and bright colors. You take the company of very dear ones. You try to listen the music which is like little speedy. So like that, Ayurveda is talking about each and everything which is around you, which you need to change or update, or a variety you can enjoy in your life by moving on all the things, all the flowers, all the colors, all the clothing, all the friends, all the music, all the eatables, all the drinks. Keep changing them as the season changes. Just take care when for those particular 14 days of Ritu Sandhi, where one season is ending and another season is beginning. For that 14 days, it is a very sensitive time, so you take special care of yourself in that particular Ritu Sandhi time, season changing time. Otherwise, Ayurveda says that you be in your comfort zone, you enjoy the life very peacefully with lot of variety and pleasure in your life. That is what Ritucharya is all about. Yeah.
Wonderful. So it seems like Ayurveda definitely has a whole manual where if one can really read about it and follow as much as possible, they will lead a more sort of a happy, healthy, and a disease-free life. And if they are not able to follow and they've gone out of balance, then we have Ayurveda doctors like yourself who can also again bring everyone back to balance and teach them and guide them and how to bring the life back to balance as much as possible according to their lifestyle habits, right? So that leaves. So where is Dr. Sanjay gone? I think he is missing over here today.
Hmm.
Dr. Sanjay, are you here?
No, he's not there.
Dr. Sanjay is not here. Never mind. So any last 1 minute? I still have one minute each before I hand over to Mr. Lal. So Dr. Animesh, any last words that you would like to say before we end the panel discussion?
Yeah, sure. In the Ritucharya and Dinacharya already it is told like it is a type of a manual what we should follow, but it is for the physical body. And what about the mental body? So we have the Sadavrita. When Ashtanga Hridaya, the Vagbhat was explaining the Sadavrita in Ashtanga Hridaya, it started with Sukhartha Sarva Bhutanam Mata Sarva Pravrittya. He's telling like we need happiness. We should work on happiness. And then he's explaining about the Sadavrita. So Sadavrita is actually the code of conduct for civilized society. We are having the Vyavaharik Sadavrita, the ethical code of conduct. We are having the Samajik Sadavrita, that is the social conduct because we are living in a society. So the social code of conduct, what we should follow. Then we have the Manasika Sadavrita, the mental code of conduct, which can lead to a very good mental health. Then we have the Dharmic Sadavrita, that is a moral code of conduct. Then we have the Sharirika Sadavrita, which can even include the Sadavrita, the code of conduct for sexual intercourse, the physical code of conduct. So Ayurveda, by only by reading the initial chapters
Dr.
of the
Animesh.
Samhita, we can it is there in Ayurveda. If it is not in Ayurveda, it is nowhere else. Thank you.
Wonderful. Dr. Sanjay, we missed you for some time. Everything okay?
Yeah. It's just a little bit networking. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So I guess we have discussed today's topic of the Dinacharya, Ritucharya, and Sadvitra. So it all, like I said, it seems like there's a whole manual which one can lead by to lead a very happy, healthy, balanced lifestyle. And like I said, if anyone does go out of balance, again, we have the guidance of Ayurveda doctors and practitioners who can guide people back into balance as well. And I guess the more and more people sort of become more aware and learn about these codes of practices which have already been around for so many thousands of years, and how to just make them more applicable to the modern world. Dr. Sanjay, do you have any last words before we end the session?
No, it is nice, like to all the time. Like I think Dr. Tripathi can give the best comment over here because he is with us for uh, uh,
Few
quite
months,
some
3
time.
months,
Yeah,
3 months.
3 months, and then we basically like learning a lot over a time period, um, and uh, we got opportunity to hear so many uh, Ayurvedic doctors, those who are practicing in India. So there are two things we basically like our audience is learning, and we are also learning is obviously the basic Ayurvedic principle, but also their experience, like as a practitioner, because all of them, like I'm sure, like Dr. Animesh and everyone is treating a lot of patient on a daily basis. So they have a immense database with them, day-to-day basis kind of thing. So I think like that's a good learning for all of us, and I can see Mr. Lal is very focused and patiently listening everything. So does our audience. It's very interesting to share this. Like now we have an audience over 50 different countries, so plus 50 plus countries, And as Veena mentioned that we have started this in the beginning of this year, and non-stop, like we continue this, and like last 3 months, we shift our focus very much onto Ayurveda. And then we want more and more people to learn about Ayurveda, respect Ayurveda, adopt the principle as, again, like a quote unquote, a first choice of a healthcare system or a preventive healthcare, because it's very simple, it's powerful, and is easy to use. Like is the thing is that like means in some simple way, like uh, the only thing what we say, like we need one of in our one of the discussion which we want to say, that we mention what people don't understand outside, that there are a proper Ayurvedic course which is equivalent to the MBBS course. So such kind of Ayurvedic doctors are necessary to promote Ayurveda. So we had sometime this discussion that there are certain people who do the diploma like 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, and then like claim to be the Ayurvedic practitioners. So there's a lot of like misleading information goes in the thing. So that is a great opportunity. That is why we have started this particular series where we learn from qualified Ayurvedic doctors, those who have gone through a proper qualification and everything. So you know the in-depth knowledge of Ayurveda. So it gives like a more confidence to our audience. And this is very important. So this is like a message again that because it is very difficult, like the people are very innocent, they don't understand, right? So like in some city, like you have a big investment and big like very fancy showroom and the clinic and things, and but the person sitting inside like is not a doctor. They claim to be a doctor, they don't have a proper degree. So degree is like very, very important, experience is very important. And I think like this particular series will add value to our regular audience and many more. And I can see just very like my very, it's a very interesting thing, like my focus went on Dr. Animesh background is filled with like so many awards, right? So
So
you
Dr.
so
Animesh has won a lot of, he's a
yeah,
gold medalist, he's won many awards in research, and maybe you'd
so
like to share. Yeah.
yeah, you must be doing so many things up there, so you can say something about
Thank
that.
you.
That
So, Dr. Animesh, would you like to share with our audience what all you have achieved?
Okay. So I'm a first generation Ayurveda doctor. Like in Ayurveda, there is a tradition. Like the father is Ayurveda doctor, the grandfather is Ayurveda doctor, then they are coming. So there's a set background for them. In my relatives, a maximum of them are allopathic doctors. I was the first one to join Ayurveda. I did my graduation from Banaras Hindu University, Varanasi, Institute of Medical Sciences. There I could got a better platform, a big umbrella to work, but a little bit of Ayurveda was lacking there. And what the principles, the way of learning Ayurveda was not that much suitable over there. So I was very much curious to learn the true Ayurveda or the authentic Ayurveda. So right from my graduation days, I keep on visiting different places, attending webinars, and living for around 2 months, 3 months everywhere in different parts of the country to learn Ayurveda. Then I came to know, like, if I want to learn the authentic Ayurveda, I should go into the South India part. So I did my specialization, the post-graduation MD in Panchakarma from SDM Ayurveda College and Hospital, Hassan, Karnataka. It is one of the renowned hospital, around 360 to 500 bedded Ayurveda hospital, and they are working a lot into the research. And there, I've got a very good support of the administration, my guide. I like to mention his name. He's everything for me, Dr. Ashwin Kumar M. He is very much keen into Ayurveda concept, but the main interest in him is we should look into modern technology without leaving our concept. So even my MD thesis, because of him, I've selected a new innovative therapy that is Janu Avgaha for Janu Sandhigata Vata. It is a disease which can be compared to osteoarthritis of knee joint. So it was a new therapy. So I designed a new instrument for performing this therapy. And because in Ayurveda, very few people are working in the sector of innovation or using technology. So because I have done a very small thing, I don't consider it as a very big thing. We have got a very good recognition from the government of India. We received the National Innovation Award by Indira Gandhi National Open University, New Delhi, for this particular research work. Then, other than this, I've also worked in designing few more instruments. And my basic idea while designing this instrument is that we should go for the standardization. We should prepare the SOPs so that we can reach up to a particular level, whether if we talk about the clinical practice, if we talk about the research. Right now, I am into a clinical practice. I am working as a Panchakarma consultant in a multi-specialty Ayurveda hospital in UP. Then the other thing which is lacking behind is the startup culture or the entrepreneurship culture in Ayurveda. The doctors, they are having the degrees, they are having the knowledge, but they are not coming into the market. They are not able to present how Ayurveda should be presented. So this was my second area of interest where I have worked. I started with doing a part-time course in healthcare management from the Institute of Management, Banaras Hindu University. Then it reaches up to winning the Ayur Start, that is the first Ayurveda startup competition organized by Government of India, the Startup India Mission and Confederation of Indian Industry. So this is the second part where I think the Ayurveda people should look. And my main objective is I tried for this when I was presenting in a meeting of vice chancellors and directors in the Indira Gandhi National Open University is like the scientific community should come into Ayurveda. We have a particular background, we have a particular set of knowledge, but we are
Yes.
lacking the tools.
Yes.
So if such tools can be used in a proper way, I always talk about the type of study, the research design. We should not go for the set protocol which are given, which are being used in the modern system of medicine. We should go for the black box design. We should go for the retrospective study, improving what is given in Ayurveda. And the day when the scientific community will work hand in hand with the Ayurveda doctors, definitely what Sanjay sir is saying again and again, the Ayurveda will be the first line of treatment, or the mainstreaming of the Ayurveda will work not only in India with the government support, but globally in each and every country. Ayurveda will one day will definitely be the main line of treatment.
I want to add something very interesting, like, sorry, we'll take a little bit more, but Animesh has touched a very, very interesting point. And I think like this is the main message I like to convey to all the people. And I really like the way Dr. Animesh mentioned about his supervisor. I was very blessed to work with Dr. Saran Narang. Very few people know who is Sarang Narang, but just introducing through this platform to the audience, Sarang Narang worked with Dr. Hargobind Khurana, and he is the person who did the genetic coding and on which the Sarang Narang, Dr. Khurana got a Nobel Prize. So many times what happened is a student get the work and the professor get the things. So that's how his real story, everyone knows about it. He moved to as a principal research officer to Canada. And then he invented insulin. So the insulin what we have, like that's what invented by Dr. Saran Naran. He was my mentor, and then he taught me one thing, and that's what exactly Animesh mentioned over here, that don't go with the set protocol. And that's what he explained to me, what he called the parallel thinking. That's his concept. And I really want to say, he didn't allow me to read a single scientific research paper till I completed my PhD. I said, if you read anything and then you do your PhD, your mind is biased. Okay, then you will follow the protocol. If you want to do innovation, do something what you like, do everything, take a risk. If you fail, you fail. But once you complete it, then only you read just to fulfill your literature review and research and discussion kind of things to justify other stuff. And it is amazing that he promised me and he guaranteed, he put a guarantee to me. So though he was in Canada, I did my PhD in Hong Kong. He was my mentor, my supervisor was someone else. It was surprising thing, like when completed PhD, like all the research paper was very much aligned with my work. There was no like things which was contradicting. So he proved to me that there is something called intelligence. Okay, and he create a diversification between intelligence and the knowledge. And that's what he say, like we are all born with intelligence. So any people who want to go in the line of innovation, they have to use their intelligence, not the knowledge. If you go with the knowledge, then you are biased, because you know, you don't know, you don't know. You can only speak and do certain things what you know. But when you are intelligent, you are unlimited. Your brain is unlimited. So that, thanks, Dr. Animesh, you touched that point, and this is the most important point for all the students or anyone who are interested in innovation, that there should not be any bias. They should go with the open mind, great ideas, but yes, and great passion. So very nice. And then Dr. Kavita is here, and you are from the university, so you must be interacting with a lot of students. And I think I like what Dr. Nimesh say, like something startup kind of things is a great things to hear, and that's required. And hope you can implement something like that in your college there to motivate a student, because it's a chain reaction basically. So when people do on that, so sorry to go a little bit over time, but this is very interesting for people to know. And it's very motivational. It's a motivational, because doing old fashioned or a typed, then we cannot progress. But when we do innovation, then you become the role model, and then you inspire many people, and then people start experimenting without destroying the principle. So that's the whole, the today's message went very clearly, that don't touch the principle. The principle is there, the foundation is there, right? Use that foundation to build around it, innovate around it, research around it, right? So I think that's my understanding, and that's my message. So thank you very much, like Dr. Animesh and Dr. Kavita. It was really great to have you here.
So wonderful. Thank you so much for your inputs, your insights, your knowledge, your sharing. And to celebrate, of course, we always have Mr. Lal, who takes the last steal of the show to sing us a beautiful song. So, Dr. Tripathi, are you there?
Oh, he's not there.
He's not there. He's gone. Okay. So, yes, I keep saying Dr. Lal today. So, Mr. Lal, all the doctors here. So, doctors coming out. So, yes.
Okay, thank you. Like Ayurveda is about 500 years back.
5,000. 5,000.
5,000, wow, 5,000 years old thing. And this ghazal, which I'm going to just one para, this was written by somebody about 100 years back. But it was about in 1960, Muhammad Rafi sang this song, this bhajan or ghazal, So please enjoy. ना किसी की आँख का नूर हूँ, ना किसी की आँख का नूर हूँ, ना किसी के दिल का करार हूँ, जो किसी के काम ना आ सके, मैं वो एक मुश्ते गुबार हूँ, ना किसी की आँख का नूर हूँ, ना तो मैं किसी का हबीब हूँ, ना तो मैं किसी का रकीब हूँ जो किसी के काम ना आ सके, मैं उसी के मुश्ते खुबार हूँ, ना किसी की आँख का नूर हूँ. Thank you.
Wonderful. So thank you so much again. A beautiful session once again. Very insightful, very knowledgeable, and we are going to carry out. It's going to be October tomorrow, and our following discussions will now be live. We are going to take it live at Naveda physically, and of course we will come back time on time online again. But we are now going to take all our discussions coming up for the next at least 1 month or so live at Naveda. And if we do happen to have a hybrid session, we will invite all of you, right? So thank you so much for your insights, and we look forward to associating with you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Namaskar.